Hi, my name is Michael.G and have another video for you today. And the name of today's video is the Manosphere's High Value Man Dating Strategy is a Billboard of Stupidity floating in a cesspool. Now there's a whole lot to unpack there, but it's really quite simple. First, let's talk about what the Manosphere is. The Manosphere is, let's say, a group of men that are disenfranchised in the dating world. Some of these men swear off women and they become something called MGTOW. MGTOW. I've said this before, and MGTOW is an acronym for men going their own way. Their own way. And this would be the male's version of feminism. So if you want to know what a MGTOW is, it's like the collective of men that were disenfranchised because of women, and they started their own groups. So part of the Manosphere is these guys getting together, and they have a podcast recently. I don't know how many months they've been doing it now, but it's called the Best Podcast for Men's Activists, or the Manosphere. Okay, so this is the best. Now, a little bit about me for a second so that we can get into the video. My big thing is that truth above all. So the Manosphere or MGTOW or anything that you see my videos are based on, I'm always looking at the information given in my videos and testing it for any errors besides grammatical errors, which of course they're all the time. And but the core values that are being presented are solid without a crack, and I look for the cracks all the time because we're talking about truth. So you could say that in any religion, which the Manosphere or MGTOW is a religion, and feminism is a religion, and science is a religion, that there are high priests in the religion, or people that are like the top of the top, and whatever they say is like the core foundation. So even in the Manosphere, they have like the godfathers of the Manosphere, and somehow this is videos that this group is putting out about the Manosphere is giving dating value and dating strategy. So they're all co-signing it. So this is why I'm chasing this one. So the premise of the video is they bring a few women, and the guys try and teach the women, and they flat out say they're looking to teach the women why they should change their standards and go for guys, and that's the premise of the video. So one of the big things that these Manosphere guys are saying, and they're always talking about, is high value men. High value men. And they're creating, or they want the men to become high value. Once these men become high value, then for them they have more options. And when they have options, their value structure is based on that they're bringing what they're bringing to the table, which may be money, whatever they're bringing to the table. But for them to be high value, a big emphasis is on money. They're taking care of themselves, and the whole Manosphere is about not taking women's crap. Okay, this is how they're talking all the time. So they have options. So they bring the women on the show, and they talk to the women, and they're pretty much saying the same thing to the women at the end of the day. They're saying to the women that a high value man is going to seek a woman to comply, or compliance is a core factor, that the high value man needs the woman to be compliant, because he's bringing the money. And if you watch the videos, they're always asking the women, what are you bringing to the table besides sex or sexuality? And at the end of the day, they distill it down to the women's worth or net worth is based on their sexual market value. These are all key words that they say, just like high value man is a key word for them. So they want the women to be compliance. And they're telling the women that if you're going to be with a high value man, that the reality is that you're going to have to share him. Share the man. So in other words, the men are telling the women on the video that if you're going to be with this high value man, and they're considering high value men like rappers, businessmen, actors, sports guys, if you're going to date any of these guys, you're going to have to compliance, and you have to share the man. So there's going to be other women in the man's life that he's going to have sex with, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So this is how they're presenting it to the women. And there are some really sharp women there that are giving them some good fight back on this. But the women they really are not grasping the bigger picture. And they're not saying the big picture answer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to show the big picture and how their dating strategy is really the absolute dumbest dating strategy or method of meeting women that you could possibly think of, because they really don't know what they're saying. And the Bible does talk about this. The Bible, let me jump to the Bible for a second. The further that you depart truth, the more that you depart the truth, you are in the lie. Okay? So as you leave the truth, you're coming into the lie. The more you manifest the lie, the bigger the billboard that God makes them look stupid. In fact, the Bible actually talks about that the wisdom of man is foolishness. So the greater focus on their lie, leaving the truth, they're going to be easier to discern. In fact, the Bible does talk about that the priests of, or the high priests or the priests that are talking about the lie, God literally puts dung on their faces and on their festivals, and he curses them. So he makes it really visible. I mean, dung is, fecal matter, that comes out of your backside. He puts that on your face. So we're going to talk about how God is going to put dung on the Manosphere's high value man dating. So we're going to do that on the next page now. Okay, so we have the high value man, and he says that he is busy, he's got business, and he's got bucks. Okay? So he tells the woman that she has to be compliant, and she has to understand that you have to be shared. Okay, you have to share me with other women. That's it. Okay, these are the two core things that they're really talking about all the time: compliant and share me with other women. Okay, so now this is their hook, that they are a high value man. So now they're going to get a woman whose eyes are going to see the money, and they're going to desire the hook. So this is our woman. Okay, she's going to desire the hook. So for her to be compliant and to share with other women means that she has to have a plan. And why a plan is that for her to do this, she has to willfully give this man what he wants. So if you're going to use your will to fulfill what this man wants, you have your dating strategy. Now this guy who thinks he's so smart, his dating strategy is to get a covert narcissist or a cunning enabler. Same thing. Because for her to get what this guy's selling now, she has to make sacrifices. What will she sacrifice? She will sacrifice her heart and the truth. That's what she will sacrifice. So she will bring to the table her body, sex, and her will. These guys are so dumb because they want to profess that they're so smart, that by having this conversation, they are teaching the women to manipulate the men. Because the covert narcissist will wait you out. And then when you make the mistake, and when the times get tough, or she finds that opportunity, she will get the bond, she will get the money, and you're out. I will give you a perfect example of this, which makes it even better. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, and I had said this before, married a woman named Robin Givens. Now remember, the more that you're departing the truth, God's going to manifest the lie with a bigger billboard. He's going to put more shit on everybody's face. So the woman is robbing, and giving at the same time. That's her name. Mike Tyson was the #1 fighter, and he hooked up with this woman, and she actually put him in jail. She knew exactly what she was doing. Exactly. He thought he knew what he was doing, and that's the problem here. These men think they know what they're doing with their, you're going to have to share me with other women, and you have to be compliant. So now, these high-value men, at the end of the day, are going to get covert narcissists. And they are... and this is their strategy. These videos, the group that are putting it together, they're called Fresh and Fit, and they bring in their Manosphere, big gurus and everything, and even these big gurus and everything, God even has some funny things to say about them in their billboards. Their billboards with the fecal matter on their faces. Let me jump to one or two of them. Remember, this is a big movement now. This big movement now. They're teaching the guys that if you get yourself to be a high-value man, look for an enabler. An enabler that will comply, that will give you what you want. But in that, let me just one more thing I want to say about that. When this woman complies, if she does not have the heart and the spirit... Okay, let me get back to this. 1 second, yeah. This woman, when she will comply, she does not have the heart, she does not have the truth. What she's feeding him is the lie that he is going to gobble up. You're wonderful, you're smart. So she's going to end up keeping this guy in his delusion. His delusion. Another example of this would be former President of the United States. Donald Trump and Melania Trump. Melania Trump has that relationship with him. She gives the will. He eats the lie. This dynamic is going to happen with a lot of powerful men, because at the end of the day, the guy doesn't. He's not looking for the heart or the truth, because he had to leave that behind. Because remember, the pain of these MGTOW guys or these Manosphere guys is that they were jilted. So they're trying to rise up above their pain and the truth. And in doing so, they're creating this false reality or false Manosphere or something. So does God make this visible in other aspects of these Manosphere guys? And I'm going to give you a couple of their godfathers of the Manosphere. Okay. One of the guys wrote a book called Irrational Male. And rationalizing is one of the things that the rigid character defense character defense specializes in. Okay? These rigid people are frozen solid. And the person that wrote that book, if you look at them, they're frozen. They have very thin lips. Very thin. A lot of rigid people have very thin lips. And very cerebral. Too much energy in the head. Too much energy in the head. Okay, let's jump to another guy. Another one of their famous, male Manosphere guys always says he has a face for radio and a voice for print. In his first statement, he makes this statement every time he starts a video. A face for radio, a voice for print. He is actually making his self-worth less. And the women catch these things. A woman is not going to want someone that's frozen solid unless they got a plan. And the woman's not going to want someone who's intentionally, not intentionally, but unintentionally has no identity. When they're playing video games, they lose their sexuality, they lose their identity, and they're getting into the feminine. Rigidity in the man also makes the man feminine to the woman. She doesn't see him. They're invisible. The third guy, his name is Sandman. It's great. Sandman, man of sand. Okay, the foundation that does not stand is built on sand. The Bible talks about this foundation, built on sand. So he is Sandman, and you do not know who he is because they have a different. They use like fake names or whatever. This is their name. You don't know who the person is. So they're hiding. Again, hiding. No identity. And sand is their sand does not have substance. So another thing is, another one of my videos I showed that the MGTOW guys is the head that launches. The head that launches from the body. That head that launches. So the manosphere is all these heads together. And when you take all these heads that don't have identity, you have sand. Or you have the male collective, which is by nature feminine. The reason why these guys are losing, they're getting disenfranchised from women, is that their very essence is feminine, not masculine. So they're gravitating together, talking about women 95% of the time. 95%, they're always talking about women. The woman is this, the woman's that, she looks for this guy, doesn't look for me, doesn't see me, invisible, blah, 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 blah. All that garbage. Everything that they say is making them collect more in the feminine and not having the masculine. Because remember, part of the masculine is having identity. Now, yes, you can have the false identity of the inflated I, and that's going to give you the other problems, which, you're going to look for someone that we discussed, compliant. You're going to want someone compliant. You want them to comply. Actually, Jordan Peterson says it really good. You want the woman to say no to you. You do. You want the woman to give you trouble. You do. Because then that opens the door for negotiation. And G-I-H, I don't know. I can't spell that good. Okay, so negotiation with the woman is actually a lot of fun. It really is. But these men can't handle the no. Because they've gotten no. They're the no. They're the no to themselves. They're the disenfranchised men whose head launched from the body because it has so much pain. So now when they look down upon the women, they're judging all the women. They're judging the women. What people don't realize is that when the woman is getting that extra attraction, she has a life arc. So everybody has an arc in their life and a direction. If the woman is getting all this attention when she's young, and it pulls her away from her spirit, her outcome is going to be what we see today with a lot of women that are, getting older and older, that never got married, or they don't have any long-term relationships, and they're like preserved because this is what they get when they took all that outward attention, and that's all they lived on. They lived on that outward attention. So that's their arc. So these guys, these MGTOW guys, MGTOW, these MGTOW guys are angry because they can't get with these pretty women that have their own arc, which in reality, that arc was created by the MGTOW guys. Because instead of being in the masculine, they were feminine and made the women the masculine by giving them all the attention all the time with their eyeballs. So they would comply to the women for such a long time that they've lost their masculinity. They end up being MGTOW. And even if you look at the word MGTOW, which had said this in another video, MGTOW is men going their own way. However, if you're saying it, there's an I in there which does not exist. See, you're supposed to spell this MIGTOW, but they don't have the I. Their very name is an acronym. Their name is an acronym. An acronym is only the first letter. Acronym is the first letter of a word. It is the head of the word. They don't have the body. So MGTOW is the collective of heads with no body. They can't get the woman. And they have no eye. See, this is the dung that God puts on their faces. This is the dung. They think they're smart. Their very name is telling them the problem. The very name. Same with feminism. Feminism is no masculine. Feminism is no masculine. The word itself, feminism, there's no masculine in it. The word MGTOW is the collective of acronyms, of heads. All right, let me read this out of the Bible because it's really funny. So if we hear Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament, and at this point, God is mad, and he's like, by the end of Malachi, he says, I'm going to send you a problem, okay? And you're going to have a problem. So he starts off in Malachi 2, 1 through 9, and now to you this charge, O priests. Okay, remember I said about the priests. If ye hearken not, and lay it not to heart, to give honor to my name, said Jehovah of hosts, I have sent against you the curse, and I have cursed your blessings. Yea, I have cursed it, because ye are not laying to heart. Notice, heart is in there. He cursed their blessings. Lo, I am pushing away before you the seed, and the seed, and have scattered dung upon your faces, dung of your festivals, and it hath taken you away with it. And ye have known that I have sent unto you this charge, for my covenant being with Levi, said Jehovah of hosts, my covenant hath been with him of life and of peace. And I make them to fear, and he doth fear me. And because of my name ye have been afraid. The law of truth. Notice truth is in here. The law of truth. What these people don't have, the priests don't have the truth. And hath been in his mouth, and perverseness has not been found in his lips. In peace and in uprightness he walked with me, and many he brought back from iniquity. What they're doing with this whole manosphere thing, their priests are encouraging young men to get further away from the truth. Because what they think is the truth, or their wisdom, we just demonstrated very easily that their ideal woman is a covert narcissist. Covert narcissist who will comply and will deal with you, with the other women, because she sees the prize. Because you're making her enable for the prize. For the lips of the priest preserve knowledge, and the law do seek from his mouth. For a messenger of Jehovah host he, and ye have turned away, ye have caused many to stumble in the law. Ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, said Jehovah of hosts, and I have made you despised. You know, these men also are despised among women. And lo, before all the people, because ye are not keeping my ways, and ye are accepting persons of the law. Now, I put this in here, these verses, because they really say so much. We can go to Corinthians 1:3-16. Have ye not known that ye are the sanctuary of God, and the Spirit of God dwell in you? If any one of the sanctuary of God doth waste, him shall God waste, for the sanctuary of God is holy. So when these guys are talking about the women, they want them to become liars to be with them. The which ye are. Let no man deceive himself. If anyone doth seem to be wise among you in this age, let him become a fool, that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, for it hath been written, who is taking the wise in their craftiness? And I'm going to read these other two verses because they're also very powerful for this. Hebrews 4:16, 14 and 16. Having then a great chief priest. Now look, the chief priest of God, okay, Jesus, passed through the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, may we hold fast the profession, for we have not a chief priest unable to sympathize with our infirmities, but tempted, just like temptation, in all things in manner, apart from sin, we may come near then with freedom to the throne of grace, that we may receive kindness, find grace for seasonable help. Now before we get cut off, something really important. The only way to God, Jehovah God, the word Jehovah is to be, or I am. The only way to get to the state of to be, or I am, is through Jesus. Jesus says salvation is of Jehovah. Jesus is also the truth and the light. The only way you can get to the state of being, or to the I am, is through truth and light. That's the only way to get to the Father. Truth and light. When you read Jesus, the Christ means anointing. Salvation of Jehovah, that means, that's what the name Jesus means.